Hey there, I'm David Gale, and this is ACTRA Spotlight, where we're building the Canadian star system one podcast at a time. I had the great opportunity to interview Eric Peterson. Now, you probably know him as the curmudgeonly Oscar Leroy from Corner Gas, but he's actually the co-creator and star of Billy Bishop Goes to War, an ACTRA Award of Excellence recipient, and a member of the Order of Canada. And he has a few things to say about colonialism and what it's like to be asked to call strangers a jackass. Enjoy. So, Eric, according to the Canadian Encyclopedia, Eric Peterson's fresh, energetic, natural acting style has made him popular with Canadian audiences, and he continues to be a mainstay of Canadian television. That's a quote.
Wow, young and fresh.
Yeah. And,
those days are done.
Yeah, and I just wanted to know, did you know that there was a Canadian encyclopedia?
I had no idea there was a Canadian encyclopedia. I don't know who put those entries in. I have nothing to do with it.
You didn't write that?
I have never written anything to go online about myself. It's a wonderful surprise to go online and kind of Google your own name.
Yes.
And then go, wow.
What's the most surprising thing you've discovered about yourself?
That I'm, well, just that. That's a very surprising thing.
That you're fresh and energetic?
Fresh and energetic.
But you do have a natural acting style, wouldn't you say?
Is it natural? I don't know. I guess it's unschooled. I am a primitive, basically.
Oh, really?
I'm a primitive when it comes to acting. Yeah, I never went to school. I've learned, and I was thinking this thought the other day. I mean, yeah, I do. I guess I do have I've never kind of studied. Mm-hmm. I've just worked.
You just worked and you've learned from the work.
Well, I'm a real believer, really, in the end. Like, I mean, I think there's things that one could, yeah, if I did it again, like voice work, voice training, mm-hmm. stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of things that you could actually, about the history of of plays, et cetera, that could all be taken care of in a school.
Right, and you feel like you were lacking in that?
Well, I've picked it up here and there, yeah, but to a certain extent, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I would say that the biggest one would be voice. Mm-hmm. I think voice training would have been a help to me.
Right.
Now, I've developed the way I've developed on my own. But that's one thing. But I do believe that you actually learn about acting by acting. Mm-hmm. I mean, people can describe what acting is, they can say what it's going to be, but you really actually have to encounter that yourself and develop your own kind of way of approaching work.
Were you one of those people who would stand in the wings and watch other people work?
Never. Never. I couldn't bear it. I've been so rivalrous.
Really?
Don't they call that acting? Come on.
You got to laugh for that.
Yeah, come on. Let me on.
So you're on Because News sometimes.
Yeah.
This political show, political comedy show, and it's hilarious, and you tend to pontificate on this show. I
am a pontificator. That's my shtick on the show, where the other ones are all like all the other people that
Panelists.
And I love it. I love being on it. They're all stand-up comedians. Uh-huh. They're all comedians. They all do jokes, and they're very quick and everything else. I am the opposite. I am not a comedian. I'm a slow yarn teller, and so that's what seems to be. They're always trying to get me to hurry up, get to the point, stop talking what I'm talking about, as I go on and on and on and on. And so I think that's kind of my niche, is the rambling old fella, and I'm also like I've lost touch with the zeitgeist so badly now. I am like a traveler from another planet. And when they start talking about the present world that we live in and the cultural realities that a lot of this has to do with, the internet and that life, which is a mystery to me mainly. Mm-hmm. So I'm like a time traveler in a way, or from a different time and space with my long-winded yarns.
Do you have a rotary phone?
Phone?
A phone.
Yes. No, I go on the internet, but
Yeah.
I'm not on a social media.
Right.
And so, like most of the world now, the news travels on this social media thing.
Very
basically.
fast, too.
Very fast. It doesn't have to be true at all, evidently.
No.
Nothing has any veracity anymore. It's just out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're free to judge ourselves or be told what's fake, what isn't fake, what is, what isn't, and what isn't. But the speed of gossip now, it used to be that you could, I'd have to wait till you met somebody at a restaurant and say, what's happening to who?
You'd have to save your gossip?
No. People seem to know, far in advance. People have, people have died. Contemporaries have died. And I've gone, I'm going, oh, did you know that so-and-so's died? They passed away. Isn't that sad? That happened 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, sorry.
They're still dead.
And they're still dead.
So was your household a political place when growing up?
No.
No.
No, it wasn't a political place when I was growing up. I mean, my father was an entomologist, and he was... We grew up in the prairies. No, it was a stabler time, too, I think. Both my parents had gone through the Depression and the war and everything like that. So, yeah, no, I don't remember. No. I don't remember political discussions in my home. My politics came more from getting into acting in the cultural politics of, nationalist politics. Right. I think that's where my politics sort of came, sort of working with Theater Passmore,
right.
and that kind of theater movement.
A lot of politics in their plays.
Yeah, and it had to do with decolonizing. Actually,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that's dated now too, because it was a Canadian. Canada is a colony. Now we have lots of the decolonization of First Nations people within the country. Mm-hmm. That's not as coherent as that. My politics are sort of old in that way.
Mm-hmm. And but you were featured in some seminal theater here in Toronto, the Farm Show and Farmers Revolt, and these things. You helped create these works as well.
Well, that's how those plays work. They
mm-hmm.
they were group oriented. I mean, what the most important one that came out of that was Billy Bishop Goes to War,
right?
That John Gray and I wrote, but it was out of that philosophy that we had our stories to tell, and they were interesting and provocative, and they also so the political basis of that story was how a colonial fellow makes good in a way mm-hmm. With the mother country in that sense, but
Britain.
Britain.
Yeah. So now you created this with John Gray?
Yeah.
And it was hugely successful. I mean, we're talking like internationally successful. Broadway, West End, Edinburgh.
But again, according to my politics, that's who cares?
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. Who cares if it was what's really important? It was successful in Canada.
Right, and
it didn't have to, But your take on that, the idea that it was successful because it went internationally.
Right.
I'm sorry, reveals on your part, David, kind of colonized mindset that we wanted to have disappear. But now
I'm just the great grandchild of immigrants. So no, I was thinking in the sense that you are taking Canadian stories and spreading them around the world.
Yeah.
So Canada gets to be known not just as a colony, but as a creator of art and
I think the more important was the audience here, who were starved for Canadian stories. Canadians starved for Canadian stories because we had a surfeit of British stories, American stories,
there you go.
That was more the genesis of that, and that was the political aspect of it.
And it is one of the most widely produced Canadian plays in Canada.
Well, I know John Gray and I have done it through our whole. We started out in our mid-30s, and I'm in my early 70s now.
Uh-huh.
So, but it's only a couple of years ago we did it for the last time again.
Yes.
So we've done it longer than Billy Bishop ever lived.
Right.
I've had to come from the grave in order to play the part.
Did you ever expect it would be so successful?
No.
No.
Never.
No.
I don't know of anybody when they have a successful... I mean, it'd be interesting to find out, people that have had big hits. They went, I knew this was going to be a hit. I'm going to write a hit now. I have the perfect idea. I know it's going to be huge. Probably take me through my whole career.
Nobody knows that.
Nobody
No.
knows that. It's not up to you to decide either. So
you get to contrast now because you played Billy Bishop as a younger person and as an older person.
Sort of a middle-aged person and as an older person.
And an older person.
In fact, now the next time I will have to be as a, come from a spiritual. The Ouija board will have to be brought out to bring me to the park. Exactly.
And what did you have a favorite era of playing Billy?
Playing it old has been, I think, it's been interesting to me when, just in the nature of theater, and a kind of observation about theater, about what casting and how casting is a fate. You pick the play, that's one fate. Then you pick the cast, that's a second fate that's going to ensures, or what this production is going to be like. So it was interesting to have the same play, the same lines, the same plot, the same thing, the same guys doing it, except they were older. That was John and I were older. And to see what that, because it's not consciously that you're doing anything different, but the kind of maturation of just two performers in that sense, there were just different things come out of the play.
Right.
Different things come out of the play. So that was, and I suppose in relation to the times it's done too, the audience is different. So that's also going to be something that's going to play on how people take it and how they see it.
And I imagine you're feeling towards war and about conflict, change as you get older.
Well, they do. That kind of issue. What was interesting about the play was that when we were young men doing it, like in our 30s, it was always so tragic in the play that young men died. They didn't survive. It was kind of tragic. And as you get older, you find that more and more you're playing, well, maybe that wasn't so bad that the young men died when they were young, because they wouldn't have had to live to be old. So that element, there was a kind of different emphasis about, and the notion that to go on and on about surviving the war as if there was in any form of life there is such a thing as survival, because sooner or later we all have to croak.
Slough off our mortal coil.
Real.
Yeah, not slough off it, because that would not be wrong. The Jewish version of it would be sloughing.
Sloughing off, yes.
And you've done it both in front of the camera and on stage.
Yeah.
Were there differences when you did it? Yeah.
I mean,
talk about that.
Total difference of.
Tell me.
Well,
no audience for one.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the encounter with the piece was, I was never as excited about the film of it as I was about the performance of it. I mean, performance is this event that takes place in real time, in a real space. And it's very specific that way. If it's a Tuesday night or Wednesday night, it's this performance or that performance, where a group of people come together, part of them performing and then part of them watching that performance. And that in itself is so different from the encounter with a film, where a group of people comes and are focused on a machine that's going to produce something. But I mean, there are similarities. You have characters, you have a story, and you have that interaction with the audience's imagination that has to do with the story. But the significance of live people enacting something to other live people, I won't attempt to describe what I think that is, but it's a very essential part of our nature as human beings. So
it's an experience between people.
Yeah.
So you do affect people with film. Film does affect people, but in a different way, and it's a more private way. And have you seen yourself in a movie in the movie theater where you get a laugh or you get people get a oh? Have you experienced that you recall?
Well, the actual watching oneself as an actor.
I was going to ask you about that.
Hate it.
Hate it.
So I'm denied the experience that an audience member will tell me about watching me act, where they go, "Oh my God, you are fantastic," or try and change the subject or whatever they do. But anyways, so when I watch it, I can't watch myself without being incredibly dismayed that I'm so awful, and that my experience of doing it is so different than what my experience now as I watch it. So in a way, and I'm not sure if this is common to all performers, but I just give up on it. I go, there's no way that I'm going to watch me doing something that I'm going to be able to actually enjoy it in the same way that I watch something that I'm not in. Where I'm just free to be associated, just an audience. And even though one is acts in a lot of film and stuff like that, when you do watch film, there's part of your mind that's going, I know what's happening just off the camera there, and could I act like that, or what is this? There's a bit of technical thing. You know what surrounds this illusion.
How it's made.
Right. But at the same time, you get to go as if you didn't know. You can suspend all that and go, God, I'm so excited. Will they make it out of the room? Oh, no, I hope they don't kill this character. I love this person, Sure. I want this, or this story is so much like me. That this is speaking. I'm being so moved by this. If I'm in it, that is not going to happen. No. I'm just so conscious of going, but I'm sure I looked like Brad Pitt when I did this. What's happened?
You felt like him.
What happened? So
we know each other,
yeah.
And I asked you about Corner Gas, the animated series, and you said to me that that's your favorite performance you've ever watched.
Absolutely.
You animated on.
Totally. There you have it. See,
why is that?
Because I was just a drawing, and I could go, oh, I'm kind of good in this. Right. Because I actually felt, recording it, exactly as it looks.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, so
really inside you feel like a cartoon.
Well, I as long as I'm rendered, because inside I know I am going to be a cartoon, as opposed to, I know I said Brad Pitt, as opposed to like clinging to that I'm I'm Paul Gross. Take a Canadian, yeah. I'm very good looking, incredibly talented man.
And that animated character is that. So this is an iconic show, Corner Gas. Really, it was hugely successful for many years, and there are, I think, many Canadians that identify you as that character.
Yeah.
What's it like encountering Canadians?
Well, I get asked when I call them a jackass a lot.
Do you tire of that?
Never. I'm totally flattered by that. It's a source of extraordinary kind of satisfaction to me. That because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. My only interest has been actually this kind of cultural experience of telling stories to this specific audience, the Canadians, so that we, in the end, are all, and adding to the conversation what it's like to live in this part of the world and be a person from this part of the world and what that's like. It's the standard cultural, I think, exchange when any national culture has to do. That's their job, in a way, is to reflect the people that they're playing to, in a way. And it's not just in film and television. It's theater. It's books. It's everything else. And that then gets either admired by other cultures or feeds into that kind of the culture of the world. But specifically, it's a very important cultural event to live in a country where you go, well, this is my story, and this is my story being told in an art form that's practiced by the whole world, in a way. So that's that. So Corner Gas, even though it's a comedy in that, the kind of identification with that by Canadian audiences, and people come in to me and saying, "You're just like my dad. You're just like my uncle." it's very gratifying for an actor, which basically that's been my only ambition, was to give that experience and have that experience of playing a person like that and having it being recognized as that. That was the circle was complete for me. Anything else has been gravy or whatever.
So you know that you're touching people when they ask you to call them a jackass.
When they ask me to call them a jackass, they're not only appreciating what I do, they're owning it as well and going, "You're mine, you are ours," and there's so much affection in it. You know, there's so much affection in it by when somebody asks you that. I know it sounds odd. Well, call me a jackass, but it's because they love you. And they love the character, you know, and that love then springs from this kind of profound appreciation of it, which I sort of inarticulately talked about.
No, I think
it has to do with the you know, the locality and the national aspect of it. This is where we live. This is how we look at it, and this is a small piece of that they go, and that's true, and I appreciate that, and I love you for doing it.
And you're actually from Saskatchewan. So,
I am from Saskatchewan, but it's never.
So right.
But yes. So I wasn't appropriating anybody else's from other provinces, or you know, I wasn't trying to act a newfie.
We have to be very sensitive to that. Really, very sensitive. Have you met Oscars? Have you met your characters over the years?
Of course I have.
Yes.
Totally.
Well, you don't have to say the
real
name.
I thought of my own father when I did it. Now, my father wasn't anywhere like that, but you know, I can think of that kind of, and really Oscar's behavior, I mean, in a sense, is not as I've got to be an old curmudgeon myself. You go, this isn't anything to do with character. It has to do with men at a certain age. And as I referred earlier to the zeitgeist disappearing from me, I have no idea what it is. That, I can say that and say like I'm like a Martian, but it's also that it allows me to go, what the, because I don't understand so many things anymore. I can then play out my insecurity by going, what the, that's just stupid. I don't know why they do it that way. The phone used to be on the wall. And you dialed it up, and you always knew where it was. Now it's in my back pocket. I can never find it, and they're charging me all the time for it. You know, I can do old fart things about that.
Right.
I can complain about it, which is a way to disguise my my vulnerability.
Sure.
Because I don't understand things anymore. So that's what Oscar does a lot. You know, rather than say that he's not understanding things and doesn't agree with things, he just goes, everybody else is a jackass but me. Right. And I kind of feel like that too in my own life sometimes.
So he's assertive in his ignorance.
He totally, just to cover it up. It's just his way of going, I'll show you, I'll just puff up like an old frog here and you'll have to be afraid of me because fantastic. I am not, I don't know what the hell's going on anymore, basically. And
has he slipped into your own life?
Totally. Totally. I
bet your wife appreciates that.
The wife and the children, well, I've had to curb it at home. I can really only do it alone driving in the car. When I am alone driving in the car in traffic, I am free to vent.
Everyone's a jackass when you're
Everyone is a jackass. I have decided that I am the only good driver in Toronto. Everyone else does not know how to do it, refuses to do it, makes total mistakes. I alone am the only good driver in Toronto. So don't worry, if you see me in the car next to you, know that you're beside the best driver, the only good driver in Toronto.
As is Oscar, no doubt, in
Saskatchewan. Is no doubt, yeah.
Oh my goodness! And do you watch the animated series? Because you can watch yourself on it. No,
I never watch it. I mean, if I'm flipping through channels, that sounds even old-fashioned, eh? Nobody has it. I've just revealed the fact that I still watch ATV, as opposed to it on the computer.
Can you watch it on Gem? I think you can watch it on Gem.
Oh, totally. Well, it's not on Gem. It's on. Is it
Crave?
On Netflix? It's on Crave.
It's on Crave, right. Good.
I guess.
Yeah, I think you should plug it.
Yeah. Well, I should?
Yeah.
Oh, I think they're supposed to do that in social media. Yeah.
Do you know how to do that?
No, because I don't have social media.
You've
so
tried to
I've been
dial, tried to dial your
now
cell
they
phone.
not only want you to, now that's part of the auditioning process now is how many followers do you have on social media. They not only want you to act the part, they want you to bring the audience too. So it makes you wonder, what the hell are they going to do? You're producing this? What are you doing? What are you bringing to the table? I'm acting in the thing. I'm bringing the audience. What the heck are you doing?
Do you tweet?
Don't tweet. I don't tweet. I don't blog.
I don't
Facebook? No.
Do you Instagram?
No, I don't Instagram. So I have yet to be harvested from my data.
Fine.
I'm not harvested. I'm unharvestable.
I can see that.
Yeah, I'm like an old weed in the ditch that will not be harvested.
So when they get you, they just get you.
Well, you have to get me face to face.
Face to face.
The way you're going to get me.
Do you do self tapes?
I do them, but I complain a lot about them when I have to do self-tapes, because I view that as simply a way of downloading costs to me, the actor. As if I wasn't paid. Now, not only do I have to now bring the audience, act the part, but I have to audition myself now. I have to hire a cameraman, put it that way, rent a room and light it properly.
Right.
So,
Do you get nervous at auditions? Do you audition anymore?
Totally audition.
Yeah. And do you get nervous at auditions?
Totally get nervous at auditions.
Do you get nervous at self-tapes?
No.
So this is what we're hearing from a bunch of members and actors, and they're saying that because they have control of a self-tape and they're not nervous, they get a better performance possibly out of it, and they get to do as many takes and just keep the best one. Whereas when you're going in an audition, you get to do one take, maybe two, and you're nervous. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, I'm not sure. Sooner or later, you're going to be nervous if you get the part.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to go and shoot it that day. Mm-hmm. I find that what I don't like about the self-taping is there is that sense that I control it. Yeah, you make a nice little tape.
That's what you don't like
Does anybody
about it?
Watch it? Does anybody see it? We don't know for sure.
We're assuming.
We've had to pay for the equipment. We've had to take up the time to prepare for it as any audition is. That is, you've had to be, you're still the only person in the room not being paid. Mm-hmm. And you've had to perform that. I mean, you've had to prepare for that. It just takes time and trouble, and you've had to think about it, whatever you've done. When I'm in the room with people, like I've gone to an audition session, and especially if there's the directors there, we can then talk about what they're looking at here. As opposed to at home, I'm making an assessment of it, but it could be continually wrong. Like I've done self-tapes where I did a self-tape, and then I get, well, they'd like you to do another one with this idea, and you go, excuse me, now you want me to do another one? When it could have been, we could have clarified that in the room. I could have done a second take for you in the room at the time, and with notes. I could have taken your notes, and we could have done something about it. So that's a kind of drawback in a sense. And I suppose the other thing I'm thinking about again is this kind of tendency to download costs onto the actor. That now there's ways of compensating for that. I mean, we could. Again, with ACTRA, we could look into this cost that has been downloaded to actors, and does this do we want to negotiate something where this cost, rather than being with the production company looking for you, that I have to then pay for, could be something. And of course, we can always use it as self-employed people as a business expense.
Sure.
But that's only
and you can do it for free in the Gordon Pinson Studios.
You can do it for free, but you have to come down to this building. You have to, True. There's still effort involved.
That's right. So you're looking for an effortless audition.
No, you asked me about self-taping,
right,
and
exactly.
I'm trying to give you, I think, a pretty balanced assessment.
Absolutely.
The pros and cons of it.
Well, that's a balance. This is a good place to go to street legal, because it's sort of the balance of justice, the legal system. So Street legal. So how did you like that segue?
Wow, that was breathtaking. That was a breathtaking. The balances, the scales of justice.
Scales of justice.
Oh,
yes,
I get it.
Yes.
Okay.
So another iconic character in television series, Leon Robinovitch. You played that for what?
Thousands of years.
8 years at least.
There was 8 years of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then the reboot. And what was that like for you to be living with Leon for a number of years?
I didn't.
You didn't.
I totally forgot about him.
Really?
So when the reboot, I was the old boot in the reboot. It was like people would go, "How's it feel to play Leon again?" As if Leon was a real person. Like I'm going, I don't know. It was lines they gave me. It was a script.
Right.
I just, that's how it was. And there's like been 30 years with no lines. Yeah. As if these characters live in some sort of realm that I inhabit, that I don't. They simply, it was simply costume and scripts, and now they had this now that I was judged, the Leon Robinovitch that I was playing from years and years ago was now, funnily enough, a man that looked exactly my age. His career had manifested itself. He was no longer a lawyer, but a judge. So my virtual legal career had been astounding. I'd gone from I'd gone from lawyer to judge. Mm-hmm. I was very proud of that fact.
Congratulations.
Yes. No. Thank you.
But yet you do identify with Oscar.
Yes.
But not so much with Leon.
Leon was harder.
Harder to identify
Well,
with.
again, there was... yeah, he was. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, it was a different aspect to it. In there, I think there is just elements of Brent Butt's writing in Corner Gas that had to do with his own dad. Mm-hmm. The ball cap sort of on slant on my head. I'd seen that. There were just things that I understood about it. I have not been a lawyer. I've had to deal with many lawyers, but I have not been a lawyer. Yeah. And, so that whole aspect of the show, I never felt that I was more interested in, I suppose, I was more interested in when I played Leon Robinovitch. I was interested in the politics of Leon, mm-hmm. who would be a social democrat. I mean, again, this was in the story of the original story of Street Legal. This office was made up of all these partners had very disparate political views, mm-hmm. and mine was, I would have been an NDP or the CCF at that time. Tommy Douglas hung on my wall as an iconic picture an inspiration to Leon, mm-hmm. And that was and there was a fair amount of tension between us because one character would be Chuck Chibanian, I'm sure, was a conservative, mm-hmm. and Carrie Barr was, no doubt, a liberal, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. and I was probably the NDP. So there was a little that kind of policy whenever the slight bit that it ever came into the stories, right. because we were too involved with saving people, doing the right thing, being good, having good hair, and stylish costumes, and witty conversation. But and that was a kind of difference doing the reboot, because it's interesting. What was so interesting to me was not doing the show again, mm-hmm. but doing the show again at a totally different time than the first one. So in this case, it was one case that went over, right. 6 episodes, which was structurally totally different. And the one case had to do with
Big Pharma.
The Big Pharma and the opiate crisis. Mm-hmm. But it was, again, where I would note that in the original of it, there was a kind of country that we were living in, a country where political policy ideas were active. Now we're in a country where that is not at the forefront, but issues are, mm-hmm. but not the policy differences of different political parties aren't being played so much as this, and other political issues that, like inclusion, feminism, diversity, etc. These have become issues rather than rather than the kind of policy aspects that I was talking about. These have become. This is how this had changed now in this kind of manifestation of the series. Whether that was good or bad, the series didn't last. So one might argue, I think we had it right the first time. Perhaps we should have gone back to the old.
We don't have that power.
The People's Party was maybe should have been made an appearance. Oh, I know.
Yes. Now, so you have actually played political figures in your career. You played John A. Macdonald,
Tommy Douglas. Yeah.
And you've played more too. You've played William Lyon Mackenzie King.
Oh, William Lyon Mackenzie.
Yeah.
Not Mackenzie King.
Oh.
William Lyon Mackenzie. That was his grandfather, and he was the first mayor of Toronto. And, this is 1837, the revolt of the rebellion of 1837, and I was William Lyon Mackenzie, the rebel, and yes.
So, what was Tommy Douglas your favorite? What of these people did you study Tommy's?
Tommy Douglas, I tried to imitate him and did a very good job. I thought.
Can you? I
can't right now because that requires like weeks of preparation to get the voice and the story. No, I'm not very good at that.
And were you happy with that performance?
Yeah. I was. I thought I looked like him.
Yeah.
Like they combed my hair and they gave me the glasses, and I sounded like him a bit. I mean, yeah.
Did you speak to Shirley Douglas about it? His daughter?
Of course I did. Yeah. Shirley was, yes.
What did she say?
She said, did nothing like my father. I don't think Shirley and I really talked much about her father. I was more interested in Shirley and her opinions about things. I mean, how could you not be?
Of course.
And she played a love interest of Oscar's and where Emma was jealous of her. Yeah, that was fun too.
I bet. God. Getting her out there. So you've done a lot of different things over the years. You've done a lot of drama and a lot of comedy. What's your preference? None. You liked it all. Well,
I don't really look at them as different. Comedy and drama. It's all just acting in a way. You know.
What about on stage?
I really prefer stage.
And comedy or drama.
The older. Well, it's always fun on stage to, when people laugh. That's very satisfying.
Oh, it is so satisfying.
Yeah, it's very satisfying. And because you've been understood and loved.
And when you're doing a film or TV,
it's terrible.
It's harder.
You do the rehearsal and the crew laughs.
Yes.
You think, this is going to be good.
Yeah, that's good.
Then nobody laughs and you go, your natural instinct is, God, I bombed. What happened there?
But the crew's doing this. They're shaking their shoulders.
Maybe they are. They're not supposed to be doing that because they're jiggling the camera, and then we'll have to do the goddamn thing over again. But in general, I love live performance. Yeah. I do not. I mean, I find, and the older I get, filming, God, it's a pain in the ass. There's so much waiting. I just find it.
They pay you for the waiting.
They pay you for the waiting. I throw the acting in for free. That's what I say what the wage is for. But it's still a long, boring day in a little space, and then a moment of stark terror as you march out to do the scene. And then when you're shooting the scene, then we're into, if you get enough time to do it and it's being worked as they work the shots around, that'd be fine. I'd love to be. I always, when I'm on a film set, I always went, why didn't I become the DOP? Like, they're always busy. They're never bored. They put in the 14 hours, like they go, it's just like nothing, it seems.
They're creative.
They're creative. They're respected. Yeah, right. Which is more than you can say for the actors. Jeez. And,
They must have respected you on the set of Corn and Gas.
They better. Yeah. Oh, of course they did. They didn't respect me. I think that's going too far. But we were all a pretty funny group. And you know that, when you're on a series, when you're a regular on a series, the kind of closeness that the crew and the cast get, because day in, day out, your face, it's like a family, for goodness sake, with all the goodness and all the downside of families. Yeah. All of those things get to play out. But
do you record the animated series together?
We do, but
Yeah.
except, that's only the sound waves. 3 of us here in Toronto, and the other 4, how many? The other 20, whatever, are in Vancouver.
Right.
So we're just connected by audio, whatever you call that.
Yeah.
The sound
Link,
waves,
yeah.
they travel across the country.
With your dial phone.
And with my dial phone.
Rotary phone.
And so that's great, though, because that's, in lots of times when you're recording for a cartoon, you just do your own lines, and that's it, your spots. So that's nice to actually be able to read a script together like that, even though you can't see each other. It is more of that kind of performance of a straight, play.
What do you hope for the Canadian industry?
Oh, God, why would you ask me that question?
In 2 words or less.
My continued gripe, and I have postulated my opinions for many years now, has to do with our continued colonial status. Where Donald Trump wants to put a wall between America and Mexico, I would like to put a wall between Canada and the United States. I'm not going to use steel or ditches filled with alligators or snakes. I just simply barn board will do, with a gate for people who need to leave the States for reasons best known to themselves can come to Canada. That's fine by me. No, in this, I'm speaking mainly in film and television. Theater is different, in all our art forms, but we do need to struggle in a willful way, I think, against to be heard in this country with our own things. And I'm not saying that that's it's a complicated question to me. But I wish that we were more willing, I guess, to shoulder the responsibility of being our own people, as opposed to seeing ourselves in sort of relationship, always in a relationship to a bigger, more powerful country, either it be Britain or England, or in a kind of And I'd like to see that reflected more in film and television, which tends to be, because of the output of that country, it tends to be just overwhelming. But because I feel that I would like to see that willingness, because we have a very embedded culture in those fields of imitation as opposed to of originality, and I think that's a price you end up paying. I want to see more originality here. That would be, and it can only be in that way, as well as the kind of terrible brain drain we have in film and television and talent from this country into America. Yeah. So that's what I would.
More Canada on Canadian.
We tend to use our film and just as a job creator, as opposed to actually. So we talk a lot about Canadian stories. We don't spend a lot of time trying to do it. We're far more interested, it seems to me, in creating jobs here in film and television, as we are in creating stories here. So
it's all about stories.
Well, it isn't just all about stories, David Gale. I'm sorry that you're so naive.
You just said that.
I said I'd like to see more stories, but it isn't just that. So what I mean is we could have a cultural imperative as the basis of film and television in this country. We don't. We have an industrial imperative for the basis, and that isn't just stories.
Right.
That is, though, a Canadian story in itself.
Right.
So stories within stories. But anyways.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us, and more than your stories, because this isn't all about stories. And I think it's only right. Can you call me a jackass?
You're a jackass.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Well, what a storyteller is Eric Peterson. I could talk to him all day, but that would be a very long podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm David Gale. ACTRA Spotlight is produced by Cass Enright and recorded in ACTRA's Gordon Pinson studio. You can get Spotlight on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to like us and share us, and keep watching Canadian.